back with another episode of Fangirl Chat. This is Teresa with my host Trisha, and we also have on Kay from Fangirl Blog today. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Howdy.
Well, on today's chat, we're going to be talking about Man of Steel. And that's all I've got. Okay, you guys go.
Man of Steel. Well, one of the reasons I wanted to have Kay on for this one is she's a big Henry Cavill fan. So I knew about this show, this movie long before I was really going to pay attention to it because she was a fan. And, of course, some of us think he's Jagged Fell from the EU in our minds, but that's completely beside the point to this discussion. But anyway, so Kay caught up on Man of Steel. I saw it in the movie theater, and Teresa caught up on it too. So we thought we'd have a little discussion on the movie itself, and then also going forward what we hope to see from Man of Steel 2 or Batman versus Superman or whatever it's going to be. So Teresa, since you saw it most recently, let's go to you and see what your initial reaction was to seeing this.
Well, I, as a movie on a whole, to me it just felt like it was a whole lot of explosive fluff and big-name actors. Now, as far as the character of Superman goes, I think that, how do you say his last name? Is it Cavill? Henry Cavill did a really good job of making me like the character of Superman, and that's saying something because I do not like Superman. So I feel like they did a decent job in that regard, but as far as the movie goes as a whole, I felt like it was lacking in some areas.
What did you think of Lois Lane?
I liked Lois Lane at first because she was really strong and she had some great lines at the very beginning, but over the course of the film, I felt like they backed off on her strength and her strength of character and then just used her as just a female in the film to fall off stuff so that Superman could have somebody to rescue. And I personally think that they never should have kissed at all in the movie. They should have just held that off for a bit.
Amen. I love that you said that because that didn't feel like a vibe moment for me. I would have preferred to just not have it in that movie.
I felt the same way.
It just felt it felt forced, and it felt like they thought it was something that they had to do rather than something that the characters would have naturally done. And I feel like they wanted to establish a good female character, but in the end, they just made her be somebody that was there to pump up the male character, which, Trisha, you and I have talked about before, and just that thought makes me just gag. I don't know how else to phrase that. I was trying to come up with something better, but that's what I've got.
That's what you got. And Kay, so what are your thoughts, and what can you add to that?
Oh, very similar to that. When the movie was, before it came out, all the build-up, I kept thinking, okay, this has potential. And then when it was over, I thought that had potential, but it felt very hollow. And I felt the same way about Lois. I really liked her in the beginning, but then she just, slowly turned into a doormat, and it was just an unfortunate character after that, and it was just a lot of flying around and punching things and making a lot of damage to that city. I guess the next movie could just be all them cleaning up the city.
Well, you have to wonder if in the next, I think the people would be kind of mad at him too, just sort of as he came and then rain, all this destruction came, and I don't know that the people would be able to differentiate what he was doing versus what the General Zod was doing, and the rest of the bad guys,
and the thought that General Zod's gone and he's still there. So if you're going to be mad at anybody, it's going to be the person that's still there to be mad at. And he spent the whole movie doing good things for people, but not really being attached to those, publicly attached to those good things. And then when he is public, he is part of this massive destruction thing.
Yes. Well, one of the things I'm a Superman fan from back in the Christopher Reeve day, and also I liked Superman Returns. I wasn't opposed to seeing again, but I was sort of like, okay, we're doing it again. One of the things I liked about Superman is he's so all powerful, but his humanity in that he has friends and people he cares for, his mother, his father, Lois, the people in the Daily Planet, which we barely see in the movie. That's his weaknesses, his compassion and his friendships. That really harnesses the uber strength of this character, and we never saw that part to harness him in, which is sort of how made him into this free for all. So it was interesting. What did you guys think of the beginning of the movie with the world building on Krypton?
I thought that was neat. I think one of my deterrents for the whole film is that it started out with Russell Crowe, and I didn't know he was going to be in the movie. And I don't like Russell Crowe. So I was like, well, that sucks. And then, however, the lady who plays his mom, I like her from Angels and Demons. And so I like the scenes that she was in. I thought it was interesting. They didn't explain the codex very well through the entire movie, so the whole time I was like, okay, well, the codex is a skull. What the hell is it? And I just didn't get it, and maybe that's just my ignorance with Superman, but I didn't understand that the majority of the time, and I really didn't like the villain either. I think it was mostly that I just don't like the way that Michael Shannon looks. So I just was like, well, I don't want to watch him. Next scene. But I thought it was interesting. Although I did have to turn around and ask my husband, so they're sending him away because there's a civil war? Because I was trying to understand if that's exactly what was going on, or if I had missed something, or it was weird.
Well, I actually, a lot of people have sort of don't like Zack Snyder, like Sucker Punch, which, was his all-female action movie. And I actually enjoyed the movie in that I liked seeing women in this sort of fantasy setting, and I liked that it was very existential and you had to think about it. But transferring that over to Superman, which I think is a pretty straightforward myth, I felt that the jumping back and forth made it very hard to sort of move, as I never felt like I was being drawn along to care. It was just sort of like they were dropping in random scenes, but that it didn't keep progressing me feeling something about the character. So when the end came, I was just sort of like, well, and then obviously the destruction porn, which is way over the top. I felt like at the end, I'm like, really, who's going to be like this guy at the end? So, but it made it hard to really relate to it with the going back and forth, with the story, which is what he did in Sucker Punch too, the narrative jump back and forth, but I thought it worked better. Anyway, so we want to see Henry Cavill succeed as Superman 2, and we'd like to see a better movie, and obviously, so the Wonder Woman movie that a lot of us hope for will come eventually from DC. What do you think they need to do to make Lois? Obviously, we thought she started out strong and sort of fell off. So what do they need to do for Lois and for Superman to make them stronger? Kay?
Well, I think, at the end of the movie, they kind of introduced him to the Daily Planet, which I felt like that was missing the whole rest of the movie, because that's how I know Superman. Like, he works at the Daily Planet and that whole thing. But I think now that he's been introduced there, if they can feature him there, that will help with building Lois's character and having her in her element and taking charge and all that kind of stuff.
Sure. I know nothing about Superman, so I'll go with that.
About that.
And they just have to, like, they have to make the characters accessible to people who don't know anything about them. And I think that's something that they kind of forget about. You know, they focus so much sometimes, or maybe they don't, or they do it unintentionally, on, you know, reaching the fans that have always been around for these characters. And for a fandom that I'm coming into that I know nothing about it, you know, explaining things a little bit better might be helpful.
That's actually, it's a great point, because that ends up defining how you experience him. If anybody should be able to come into Man of Steel with knowing nothing and walk away knowing essentially who Superman is to the broader audience who does know him, the fandom, and that was sort of what was lacking from that. As far as, I mean, obviously we know he's powerful, which is an important part of Superman, and we sort of see a connection with his father, but I just had a hard time relating to Superman, who had to travel around until he was 30 or whatever it was, kind of moping about his existence and hiding so I'm hoping that they put him right there into the mix and show him trying to be the fish out of water and literally interacting with people. And that would be the Daily Planet for people who are familiar with Superman. And the next people that come into that movie and see it, they should know that humanity is part of Superman. And for Lois, they did a lot of lines where they essentially told you that she was, smart, tough cookie. She went into the military site and she had some zingers. And then after that, she didn't really do anything except serve the plot. Even in the spaceship, they had the dad, Ghost or whatever he was, tell her everything to do, duck this way. And I think Lois is smart enough and zippy enough that maybe she can't fight against a superpowered person in the ship, but at least she might be able to, guess right and duck or know to dive. Just, sometimes being a hero is just knowing to jump or being bold and doing something. And I think at least that they could give her as a character. Yeah. So, anyway, I hope they do better, because I would like DC to succeed. So we do see, I would love to see Justice League movie. That was when I was a kid. I loved all that stuff, and so I would love to see more of it. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm down for more Batman.
She's down for. You're going to get more Batman. Are you in for the Batfleck, Mr. Ben Affleck as the Batman?
I have yet to decide on that, because I've always liked Ben Affleck, but at the same time, I just see him as this scrawny, wimpy dude, and so I'm not sure, but I will. I'll give it a shot.
He'll always be the guy from Armageddon in
my
mind.
Exactly.
The goofy singing the songs, and so it'll be interesting. He's done other stuff, Argo, well done, but he's also done some bombs. Daredevil.
And then when I think of him in a superhero film, I see Daredevil and I go,
Yeah, exactly.
But you could argue that movie wasn't entirely his fault.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't entirely his fault. Sometimes
I want to know how that was not his fault.
Well, the writing, the directing, there's more.
Yeah.
No, but this doesn't take away from the way he played Daredevil, and that it sucked.
And there you go, Teresa's blunt review of Daredevil and Ben Affleck's performance. No, well, and the other thing that was so sad about the Daredevil, franchise was the Elektra movie, because I loved Jen Garner, and that was oh man, because it would have been really cool to see. And Elektra has ended up being one of the reasons they say, we don't do female superhero movies, because that didn't do well, but I don't think that was really the fault of the audience for not glomming on to either of those movies.
How poetic is that? Jennifer Garner and Ben Affleck, both in superhero movies that both bombed, together.
at least they're still together. So
well, you know,
there you go. Oh well, it's sad. So anyway, this is probably a good place to wrap it up, and we try to keep our fangirl chats at 20 minutes or so. So it's little bite-sized morsels that you can listen to on the go. And Kay, where can we find you on social media?
I just blanked for a second. I was like, I don't know. I'm on Twitter at geek_K. And that's about it. You can also find my articles sometimes on fangirlblog.com.
There you go. And Teresa?
On Twitter, I'm at IceColdPenguin, and that's the same on Instagram. And then check out my fangirl website, which is fangirlnextdoor.com.
And Teresa just put up her 2014 goals, so we're all going to keep her accountable. That's what she asked us to do. So we're going to keep tweeting your goals at you all year. Have you started? Now she's like, oh no, I don't know what I asked for. And you can find Teresa and I at FG Going Rogue for Fangirls Going Rogue, which we do a podcast on for Rebel Force Radio Network. And you can find me at Fangirl Cantina and fangirlblog.com. So this, I guess, wraps up this episode.
Can I say something at the end?
Yes, you can.
Pony up!
Pony up.